Man, see, you have to learn to not say the words as we're coming back. But anyways, we are back. Danny, Chandler, me. We're going to be joined now by our friend, Anthony Slater. Can we get it over with, Anthony, this gorilla man thing? What is your take?
Ask ChatGPT,
that's
Anthony.
not the end all.
100 grown 6'8" men.
You say 6'8", by the way. He's adding that.
I get to pick my 100, right? They are beating up a gorilla.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you better pick the right 100, but
You're not going to pick the right 100. You think Bonnie Blue picked the right 1,000? No.
It probably matters which gorilla too. I mean, right? You know, I'm sure there's
the alpha gorilla.
What did you talk? She just pick up Bonnie Blue.
It's Wednesday. It's what I like to do. I like to reference pop culture, Anthony. I'm sorry. So you're going men. Everybody, you guys are wrong.
Yes.
Respect
just
nature,
bum
people.
rush them and jump the gorilla.
I mean, telling you to respect nature. Sorry, we didn't mean to derail this.
I respect nature. I do.
I assume there's rules like no tranquilizers, no
no shanks.
That's the problem. Is men are going to ruin it by bringing their stupid little weapons. Yeah, I've seen Jurassic Park.
Can they wear pads?
Here?
No, you can't wear pads. Yes, you can wear armor.
I think I guess the idea of it, or the thought behind it, is that the men will outlast the gorilla. The gorilla will stab 100 of them.
Ladies. Okay, let's get
this
started.
This is not part of the interview, Anthony.
Sorry, Anthony. If you want to hang up and get technical difficulties, we understand.
You back. Let's try this again.
Let's talk about Jimmy Butler, because he's amazing.
He's one of the 100, by the way.
He's in the group, comes back from injury, and then just averages 26, 6, and 6. So, playoff Jimmy. We have so many of these labels that we've given guys over the years. This one is legit, right?
He doesn't really like it that much, you know. He's yeah, I mean, he's just kind of like, not that he doesn't embrace it or acknowledge that he ups his scoring aggression in the playoffs, but I don't know. I mean, he's also talking about he's Robin, Batman. He's having quite a playoffs as far as it comes to the media. But yeah, no, he was great the other night, playing with an injury that, by the way, they're saying he probably would have missed at least 1 to 2 weeks in the regular season. Like that pelvic contusion, glute contusion, whatever you want to call it, it's hurting him. And if you go back, he mentioned a play in the second quarter when he chased down Dillon Brooks and fouled him. You guys probably remember that.
Oh, yes, yes.
He said, go watch me run back on defense in that play. He's like scooting, like he's like speed walking. So he's hurting right now, but he's playing.
They called it a clean foul, too, by the way.
Yeah.
That hurt me.
Anthony, after the game, Jimmy did say he got going because of Dillon Brooks started talking, which I don't know if I buy that. He probably got going because it's the playoffs.
I mean, it might help.
Your team needs you. But has Dillon Brooks, has his antics actually motivated the Warriors in a way, or is this just part of the game?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have played, so you probably would know how, as you said, how I guess artificial that is or not. But like, he definitely is one of the villains in the Warriors, long dynasty run. He gets the crowd going, and the crowd sometimes can get the players going. I'll tell you that. Like, they love to boo Dillon Brooks. And this goes back to, we're mentioning hard fouls. Y'all probably remember the hard foul he put on Gary Payton in that 22 Memphis series. Yeah. Broke Gary Payton's elbow. Like, to this day, that's still kind of, infuriates the Warriors a little bit how that all went down. But honestly, Dillon Brooks playing pretty well in this series. Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't blame Jimmy Butler's 27 points on Dillon Brooks. I would blame the 3 free throws in the corner on him. I thought that was really ended up being the deciding foul.
Controversial. I mean, they didn't give Tim Hardaway the foul call.
They really didn't.
Yeah.
Funny how they learned 24 hours later.
The series has been very physical. Do you think that the referees have let it gone too far, the physicality?
Maybe. I mean, game 2, which is like oftentimes in playoff series from my experiences, when it gets ratcheted up, whichever the team lost, really comes, to try to, change the tenor of the series. And that is when Jimmy got hurt. But, Steve Kerr's point is they need to control it early in the game. You do few quick whistles early and maybe some of the physicality's going. But I don't know about y'all. I've really enjoyed these playoffs. And I know, there's been hard falls, and obviously Ja got hurt. Jimmy misses a game because of it. But this is high level, basketball. It's good theater. And I like the point totals. The Warriors and Rockets are struggling to get to 100. I don't know about y'all, but I've enjoyed it.
I
love 90s basketball.
I love it, Anthony.
And I'll tell you this. Obviously, Dillon Brooks is doing what he's doing, but he's even getting Steph Curry taunting technicals, which the first one where they reviewed it, Dillon started talking, and then off the pick and roll where he fell down, he's kind of giving him the second foul thing. Do you like this version of Steph Curry? Do you like when he mixes it up and kind of gets into it with players like this? Or because we don't see it often.
Ever.
Yeah. Sixth playoff technical ever, actually, by Steph. First since 2019.
It's more than I'd think, honestly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mike Conley, the guy I think has one tech his whole career.
First since 2019. That's 6 years ago.
He is. Steph kind of referred to it as like the second sibling in a fight, where he said Dillon Brooks gave him that's like a one foul on you, like 2 possessions earlier. So he was just responding to that. And the truth about that technical is if the skirmish doesn't happen after, I don't think the refs give him the taunt. It's just that Dillon Brooks responded, and then it turns into a thing, and then you go review and go, hey, how did this all start? Okay, it was Steph saying 2 fouls. Because 2 fouls, like that's in the scale of like, taunting, that's pretty low, but sure. I mean, I would say, to your point, like Steph Curry obviously has this like, Wonder Boy, Golden Boy type personality, but like there's a fierce fire within him that I think sometimes does show. You guys, I remember coming on this show earlier in the season, remember him and Isaiah Stewart towards the bench. We talked about that a little bit. Like he'll kind of step up to people. Yeah,
because I'm telling you, he has the baby face, so we don't think he's saying cutthroat things. But
and by the way, as a defender, when you see him shoot a 3 and look away, it'll get you going. Like he does subtle things that'll piss you off too. Yeah,
I love it. He's got a weapon.
Yeah, he also has the night celebration, which I think is one of the colder celebrations in sports.
Yeah.
And by the way, that started in the 22 playoffs. He typically waits to end it when it's a closing of a series to do that. He has not busted it out in this series. But a closeout game when he knows he might really be putting.
Yeah, because he knows this series isn't over yet.
No.
Yeah, no, you can't. Right, you do that in like game 3. That
imagine
can come back
someone hitting him back with it. You gotta be.
Draymond's gonna pull it out.
Be careful with that.
No, but it could be.
Draymond will pull it out early.
They call that, Moses Moody calls that the nightmare. It's dreams with Steph, and Draymond's is the nightmare.
That's pretty good. I do like that. So the Jimmy thing, obviously, we're all going to be watching every movement when he's running back and forth. The game 4, he was in a lot of pain. Sometimes adrenaline can also help. What are we expecting now in game 5 as far as his pain threshold and how it'll affect him?
Yeah, he's listed as probable. I think it's going to be similar, probably, regular season type scoring aggression in the first couple quarters, right? I think he took 4 shots and scored 7 points in the first half the other night, 20 points in the second half. They really needed him in the fourth. I think he scored 14 in the fourth. So I would expect something similar. He needs to get warmed up a little bit, but he doesn't play the style of game. It's why he's aging so well. He doesn't play the style of game that needs, leaping ability, a bunch of athleticism. It's very kind of tricky and smart scoring and powerful. And he has a high pain tolerance, let's be honest. I mean, that really matters.
Yeah. And getting to the free throw line. Yeah. Speaking of Steph had 36, not last night, but the other night, the night previous to that. Steve Kerr called him one of the greatest of all time. Why is he not spoke of or mentioned when in that category of one of the GOATs? Why is he not mentioned in the GOAT conversation?
I think you're starting to hear it. I mean, right, even this segment, bringing it up. I think Shaq brought it up recently. The run he's on, which to me, the 22 finals was it was such a seminal moment for him, beating Boston, getting the finals MVP, which was one of the last things he needed to check off his resume. And then this summer, right, I think he hadn't played in the Olympics yet. He not only gets gold, but he did it in such a spectacular way with that gold medal game. If he can get a 5th title here with kind of a 3rd version of the Warriors, I would even say a 4th version of this Warriors team, that you would probably start to hear him in that conversation. I think to your question, statistically, because he was later in his career, right, he played multiple years at Davidson. He had injuries early in his career where he missed a lot of games. It was just a slower statistical start to his career. So I don't think, you look at some of LeBron's point totals, he's not reaching that level. But if you just look at 3-point numbers and then, some of the resume, categories he's building later in his career, I think you might start to hear him kind of nudge into that conversation.
Anthony, we got to talk a little bit about Buddy Hield. He's been unbelievable for the Warriors, averaging, I think, over 16 points the last 2 games. He gets the start last game. Do they keep him in the starting lineup moving forward? We all know how valuable his shooting is.
Yeah.
It's there to stay?
It's matchup based, but against Houston, I believe yes, because Houston started the series putting Sengun on Moses Moody, and you know how you figure stuff out within series. The Warriors coaching staff has figured out they won't put Sengun on Buddy Hield because he's a movement shooter. You don't want Sengun out there, chasing him off screens, pin downs, stuff like that. So they could just rearrange Houston's matchups the way they want. If Buddy Hield's out there, and it's worked. They started really well both halves with that lineup the other day, so I would really expect Buddy Hield to start tonight. And he's shooting it well, he's playing well, he's keeping everybody loose. They're calling him. I was talking to Steph Draymond the other day. They're they were ranking him as like a top 3 funniest teammate they've ever had in this era. And you're seeing it with him and Jimmy Butler. I mean, the insults are just flying every day between them.
Yeah, how fun is that, by the way? I do love a good sort of bromance banter situation.
His
how much
voice
fun are you
alone
having?
makes me laugh.
The shirt, the excluding Buddy shirt, like everything looks fun.
Yeah, and well, Buddy really embraces it, and it has been funny, and it's really started like the moment Buddy got or I would say Jimmy Butler got into the locker room, where, you know, especially with what happened in Miami, I think he was coming in with everybody on eggshells a little bit. You know, you don't know what type of personality you're going to get, and right when he got there, Buddy Hield was just ripping him. You know, outwardly in the locker room, and everybody's laughing, and it allowed Jimmy to kind of use, like, to me, he uses Buddy as, like, you know, the guy he gets, you know, some of his insults on, and then they started taking it public, right? It started being in all these interviews and stuff. So it's been
now.
pretty funny to watch.
It's Buddy.
It's his buddy.
It's
Switching
Buddy.
gears, Draymond.
Oh.
Back in February, on national TV, said that they will win an NBA championship. Is this something that you could see happening now? Like, now that they've acquired Jimmy and things have rolling, they're playing pretty well against Houston. Is this something that you can see happening with this team? Is this a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at just like the statistical resume since Jimmy's arrival, I think at this point they're probably like 29-8, you know, top 5 defense, top 10 offense type thing. Like, it's been, you know, contender level basketball with this group. I think that they backed into a really fortunate path. I think Houston was the ideal first round opponent because of what they can't do in the half court offense. At this point, I think we would all favor them to get by Houston. You're looking at probably Minnesota in the next round, maybe the Lakers. Like, you know, that's Warriors will at least be considered, you know, a toss-up series there. We could see them winning that. So then you're talking about maybe being in the Final Four. You know, like Oklahoma City looks like a Goliath over there. Like, I'm not predicting that they're going to necessarily beat them, but once you get towards the Final Four, and I think there's a very realistic shot they're in that, we know who's on the team. We know the playoff history of Steph, Draymond, and like the way they try to like hunt these titles down. Like, you gotta, you know, I believe Draymond a lot more than I did then. I think last time I was on the show, I was kind of asked a similar question. I compared it to the Water Boy, that scene in the Water Boy, but it's a little bit like you're looking over, like, okay, you know, you might have been onto something.
I know.
I will say, how that 3-8 worked out, you just knew, wow, this is very favorable for the Warriors.
Interesting. Speaking of Draymond, by the way, I had a vision before Game 4, Anthony. I was like, he could get ejected tonight, and then he almost did, and I was like, ooh, I'm a witch.
I think everybody had that vision.
No, I felt it. I saw it in my mind. And then, you know, obviously Kerr's calling him an instigator, and then he's a lightning rod and all those things. Funny that they're in a series with Dillon Brooks, but is he still the biggest instigator in this league?
Probably. And, you know, we mentioned the theater of the playoffs, like, you know, good movies, good, you know, drama need villains. And he kind of embraces that heel role. And, you know, especially in Chase Center, it's like the villain that is loved. Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of his job. You know, he's the emotional engine of the Warriors. He always has been. He does not mind an arena that, you know, we know what it's going to be like tonight in Houston. Remember the chants the last time they were in this building. But you know, he always kind of toes the line. It's like, you know, they need him to get as close to like the fence that will electrocute you without getting electrocuted. And, you know, he got close to that fence the other night, right? If the referees just decide that's a double T in the Tari Eason situation, he's ejected, and they probably lose because Sengun killed them when Draymond was off the floor. Yeah. And when Draymond's on the floor, he can't score. So they need him in the game, but they also, as he will say, he can't be a toned down version of himself.
Right.
Like a toned down version of himself isn't good.
Just not him.
Anthony, I hate to even ask anything negative about the Warriors right now because they are rolling. They're up 3-1, but the whole Jonathan Kuminga situation is interesting. And with Jimmy back, he's got his second coach's decision DMP. It's a guy that had a great year. When guys were out and he was the main guy, he was unbelievable. Do you expect to see Kuminga on the Warriors next year? Because I know he was a critical piece to keep, but now with Jimmy Butler, there's no real room for him. And they're finding minutes for guys like Santos and everyone else, except the guy that was their third leading scorer all year long. So do you see him on the Warriors next year?
It's a good question. You know, restricted free agency is tricky. It'll probably depend on how these playoffs end, you know, how much Joe Lacob potentially is willing to spend. Joe Lacob, who was part of the Jonathan Kuminga draft pick, still values Jonathan Kuminga long term and typically is willing to pay. I don't believe he's going to want to let that asset walk for nothing. And you know, if it's a reasonable contract, it's a match and it's a, hey, try to figure this thing out, because Kuminga still has a ton of talent. But on this at this particular moment on this team, they just don't seem to think he can fit the role player stuff. The Guy Santos, hey, come off the bench for 4 minutes and just hustle around and get an offensive rebound. It reminds me a little bit in a smaller way of the Jason Tatum situation this summer in the Olympics where, you know, I think Steve Kerr was just of the belief if Jason Tatum on the floor is the 4th or 5th option, he would prefer a Derek White in that type of role where it's like, you know, defend, hustle, rebound, cut, do that type of stuff because the ball's not going to be in your hands. And I just see that with the Kuminga situation where it's like, hey, if they're not handing him the ball because like Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry are out there most of the time, they'd just rather have guys out there that you know, master the small stuff. And it looks strange. It's odd to see a guy with that type of talent getting DMPs, but they are winning, so it's tough to, you know, demand something different.
Can't argue it. You cannot argue it. Anthony, enjoy Houston. I hope this series goes as long as possible because it's fun, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, appreciate
All right,
it.
thank y'all.
We'll be right back.
Run it up, run it back, run it up, run it back, run it back.